Our speaker today is Alice Su, Senior Research Scholar and Associate Director of Deliberative Democracy Lab at Stanford University. Alice's research asks a powerful question. What would people think under good conditions? What happens when people are given the opportunity, information, and space to truly listen, deliberate, and engage with one another? We're very fortunate to have her with us today to share her research and insights on making an impact and strengthening participation in democracy. Please join me in welcoming Alice Su.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Really appreciate it. Um, can you hear me okay? Yeah? Excellent. Um, I can't see you, but I assume that everyone is very excited and I of course, I know just listening to the conversation just now and eavesdropping, if you have any questions or burning questions while I'm speaking, feel free to interrupt, but I'm happy to take as many questions as you'd like afterwards. I'll try to be speedy so that we have a lot of time for dialogue as well together. So I will jump to the slides that I've prepared for us today. And um, so coincidentally, the first slide, stemming from your just conversation just now, is just looking at approval ratings for the last decades. And as you can see, the numbers, don't exactly matter that much, but rather it's actually looking at the green and the orange dots. And you see that the green and orange dot progressively get wider and wider. It's indicating that the opposing party's approval and the sitting president's party approval is becoming more polarized. And perhaps simply because they're the opposing party, and that's why people disapprove of the approval rating. And it's just demonstrating, as a lot of perhaps what many of you talk about, certainly what a lot of media and a lot of people have thinking about these days, is that somehow we are more polarized and we like each other a little bit less these days. And that is really the purpose of why our lab exists, in trying to understand and do research on this space. Our lab director is Jim Fishkin. I've been working with Jim for the last couple decades. And as it was just said, the main question that we're asking is, what would people think under good conditions? And the question about what would people think is really critical, because many of us, as we're talking about current events, we're always asking, what are you thinking? What do you think of this? But not actually, stepping back a little bit to ask, what would you think if you had this piece of information or that piece of information, or if you talked to a few more people about these issues? And that really is the research program, is to offer opportunities for people to come together where they would normally not, and provide them with full information so that they could actually hypothetically think about, what would they think? And as they go through the process, they realize it's not a hypothetical anymore. It really becomes a way of thinking, a way of engaging, and perhaps something that the skills that they can actually apply with others and throughout their lives. So um, uh, I will not talk too much about this and just give you kind of the top line here, and happy to share books and papers that really address these more in depth. Our lab sees that there are really three problems with current public opinion that have existed through the years, unfortunately. One being rational ignorance, which is essentially, I am one in millions in this country. Why does my one vote make a difference? And oftentimes it's really hard to convince people that their one vote actually could make a difference, especially in a state like California or states that are, not swing states. It's just really hard for people to understand that, devoting time to voting is worthwhile. And the second is phantom opinions, opinions that essentially don't exist. This famously tested by the Public Affairs Act of 1975. And the punchline is that the act never existed. But there was a survey done about it. And it's just like any other survey, people answered support or opposition to it, really just demonstrating that the respondents didn't care or were too embarrassed to say that they didn't know that this act didn't exist. For fun, the Washington Post actually did an anniversary of this 20 years later, did the same experiment. And as you would expect, because humans don't change and or haven't evolved, the sample that was surveyed continued to lie about knowing about the act. And I imagine if we did this another 20 years later, it would be exact same scenario. So it is all to say that not only do we decide that we don't want to pay attention to politics or not take part in it, but we also lie about knowing about politics too. A bit problematic if you really think about it. And then we come to the third, which is communication with the like-minded. And for this, I would say, for many of us on the surface, it's not a problem if we want to spend time with people that think like us, or look like us, or do things that we like to do together. But what has really exacerbated this issue about like-minded people together is technology and being able to constantly be fed to news and videos and whatever it may be, to these echo chambers where we're only listening and seeing and interacting with information that is only information that we've deemed that we like. And there have been very, very few opportunities for really organic cross-cutting exposure. And I think there's a lot of data and research that have been published about this now. And so it's widely accepted that all the algorithms that control whether it's our YouTube feed or Netflix or our algorithm where we read our news, it is all funneling us to one way or another. And if you add all these problems together, it kind of feels like it's a bit overwhelming. And the question is, how do you actually overcome all these problems? And at our lab, we decided that deliberative polling is one method in trying to overcome these problems. And it is randomly sample in the beginning, a representative sample of a population. So it could be a community, a city, a state, nationally, multinational. We define the population and do a representative sample at baseline. Then we recruit participants to participate in either a day, weekend, multiple days, or multiple days over several weeks. We give them briefing materials, briefing videos that are vetted by an advisory committee for balance and accuracy. And then they participate in small group discussions and expert panels, and will iterate between the combination of small group and expert panel until the end, where they complete a post-deliberation survey. The picture you see under small group discussion, that's actually from Tanzania, from our first national deliberation there. And the middle one on expert panels is a deliberation that was done in North Macedonia, where they were talking about accession to the EU. That's the deliberative process. We've worked in over 50 countries, 150 plus projects, both online and in person. And I'll share more about our online deliberation platform as well. But I'm going to jump right into some examples here. So that can give you more context to how the events have affected people. This is American One Room from 2019. This is actually a screenshot of a New York Times article, in the Sunday Times back then. And there was a multi-page spread of the 500 plus participants that participated in American One Room. It was such a glorious experience, and where we invited 500 plus nationally representative um, uh, people to descend into Dallas, Texas, for a 4 day, all expenses paid opportunity to engage with each other. And the best way to show you what the experience was like is through a video. This is a clip from CNN at the time about the event.
In the heart of Texas.
Last table on your left, they will check you in.
A little bit more serious, that's beautiful. Yeah, there, that's great.
526 Americans gathering.
I love this. Great, thank you so much.
Upset about the partisan divide.
Let's be real.
This is an experiment, a scientific sample. Democrat, Republican, and Independent, representing 47 states.
You are going to listen to other people whom you never ordinarily would encounter.
Reflecting who votes on Election Day.
Hey, how are you?
It's a 4-day in-person poll called America in One Room. Before arriving, this group took one poll on the major issues in the 2020 election. Here,
it's a great question.
They listened to candidates, to experts.
This is really your time to have your voice heard.
And break into randomly selected small groups to talk.
When's the last time you talked to a 70-year-old white Republican?
I don't think I've ever talked to a 70-year-old white Republican, until now.
You know, we're being stormed at the southern border, and that's a problem that needs to be dealt with.
The illegal immigrants that we have today, you can see it all of the time, waving their country's flags, burning the American flag.
Sure, on TV you see the ones that do all this crazy stuff, but most of them work.
Like the country, this group is deeply divided about immigration.
I feel like you should have a wall, a border wall.
And along comes ICE, deports them. How can we continue to do that? In America. We don't want to learn your language. We don't want to follow your customs. We follow our own customs. And to me, it looks like they don't want to become Americans.
You know, Gary, your family were illegal immigrants. The American Indians, this was their country. Yeah. All of us came here, and we didn't learn their language. We didn't learn their customs. We said, you take ours, and you take it now. So we're all children of illegal immigrants. I don't know how we can be so choosy about the new ones.
That got to be a little heated in there.
It definitely did. But we've all respected one another and got to hear each other's opinions. And I never thought I would be able to relate to someone that was a Republican. And I have, more than once.
More than once.
Right.
I think it's been interesting to talk to Trump supporters because I don't meet many.
She's like, I don't want to be a part of this.
Seeing all of these people from all of these other walks of life, exactly how my views have changed on it, I'm not so hardcore.
And what is your advice about political discourse in this country?
You need to listen, not yell, not scream. You need to talk.
At the end,
And this is how your voice will be heard.
a closing poll to see if there's been any movement on the issues, but already visible.
Like, it's opened my mind to see that I need to listen to other people's views.
Is the recognition that there is unexpected power.
I really enjoyed you being here.
And bridging the divide.
I have enjoyed this beyond measure.
Well, I love watching that video so much, and it's posted on our website. You are more than welcome to share and share widely. On that note, to inspire us even more, we've done actually 2 deliberations with 18-year-olds, first-time voters, one in 2024 in DC called American One Room, the Youth Vote, and then just last month did the same event called Next Gen Roundtable with 18-year-olds, well, 18 to maybe some that are 20, but voting for the first time was the criteria. We brought them from across the country and into DC for 4 days to do the same thing, interact with each other, really understand what young people are thinking leading up to the midterm elections this year. And I have, this is a picture, this is 2024, and I have a quick video for you to see as well. This is a historic event.
I'm at America in One Room, the Youth Vote.
They brought up 500 first-time voters to discuss political issues.
You're from rural, urban, red state, blue state.
I just want to show the world that we can speak to each other in a civil way.
There might be a perspective that I might not understand as of right now, but I now have the opportunity to engage with those perspectives.
The first topic that we are discussing is environment.
We don't have one truth. Every single American is getting a different idea of climate change in our world and in our lives.
How do we get rural America on board?
As someone in that rural community, we have multi-generational farms, and they know no different than what they've been told from their parents and then the parents' parents. I actually live on a farm. We're a very small, very tight group. A lot of people stay in my community for their whole life. Out of my whole class, I'm the only one that is going out of state for college. The class size I graduated with was 16. Just because there's not as many of us, we still deserve the right to be heard.
The responsibility of you as a human being is to do your own research. Go read the study yourself instead of reading what CNN said about it.
I know people at home who would never read a 36-page research article, but if it was made easily accessible by anyone, we can change the dynamic. Where I grew up, everyone that I meet is either politically apathetic, as in they don't really care, or they're very much democratic. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm specifically from Cleveland's east side. Everyone there is very adaptable. We know how to not only survive with the resources we've been given, but thrive as well. When I think about having political conversations with people on the other side of the spectrum, it honestly scares me a bit, but I'm also very optimistic.
First, we're going to look at all the questions that you all have been talking about through deliberations.
What are your reasons and concerns for not using student IDs for voting?
One problem with the student IDs sometimes is that it doesn't have a formal address.
I just turned 18 a few months ago, so it'll be my first time voting, and I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm often the one supporting more of the Republican viewpoint because most people in my generation are leaning more left. I feel like Republicans get the wrong rap these days, especially with the overturned Roe v. Wade.
The very first one, Congress should pass a nationwide ban on medication abortion.
I'm a Muslim, and we don't really believe in abortion. But I also recognize that you have to take religion out of it because we are a secular state.
There are multiple types of abortions that are necessary. And in Texas, there are women who are prosecuted.
My faith as a Catholic, I would not be able to vote to allow it nationwide.
When I first met this person of the same faith as me, I didn't realize that we would have very different views on policies. But it's been super cool, seeing how faith plays a role in what they perceive and what I perceive. My hometown is San Marcos, California. It's in San Diego County. It's a lot of mix of cultures. I thought I identified with the Democratic political party, but I would say I'm very moderate. Because I come from an immigrant household, I've always been surrounded by fear of deportation. So I'm really passionate about showing the other perspective.
When we are so disrespectful to those that differ from us, we make them feel like they can't speak out.
Being able to speak in a civil way is crucial to democracy.
I was able to get viewpoints that were actually influential enough to change what I thought.
A lot of the communication that goes on with my generation is through social media. This was so refreshing to be able to speak to someone face to face.
Knowing that people will listen is just really empowering.
Our generation are so much more open and genuinely empathetic toward the opinions of others.
I honestly feel like this should happen every year.
If both sides come together to compromise, then we can go back to being that country that everybody wants to be.
The important part is that you're opening yourself up to all the ideas because no one is right about everything.
All right. I hope that was inspirational. I'm going to speed through. I only have about 9 minutes left. So I'm going to speed through and just show you some results. There are a lot of numbers here, but what I want to draw attention to is, so for all of our deliberations that we ask or discuss anything related to politics in the US, we're always asking the question, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the way democracy is working in the US? And this is from the youth from 2024, so the video that you just watched. And you can see that that light lavender, the bars are increasing with every second column, and that is the satisfaction color. So whether they're Republican, Independent, or Democratic, their satisfaction with the way that democracy is working in the US increased after deliberation. And it is not a fluke because this was from 2019, the first video you watched. We asked them how well or poorly they thought the system of democracy was working in the US. And that increased from 30 to 60% after deliberation, showing that people, the general population, also felt that democracy was working better after the days that they spent together. And in 2023, we asked the same question, before and after. And you can actually even see among Republicans the increase in satisfaction level from 18 to 50% after deliberation. And this deliberation that I'm showing from 2023 was actually done entirely online. So not face-to-face like the other two slides that I showed you. And they still had an increase in their satisfaction level. And in substance, from the 2019 deliberation, as you saw in the video, they talked about immigration. And you can see these lines going up and down, which is really showing that there was a lot of movement before and after deliberation. So the first proposal that was discussed in immigration was about whether they support forcing undocumented immigrants to return home before applying to live and work in the US. They started, Republicans started at 79%, and it decreased to 40% after deliberation. The second proposal about reducing the number of refugees allowed to resettle in the US, it dropped from 66 to 34% after deliberation. And I want to make clear that we had no expectations as researchers going into this deliberation. We didn't know where participants would start and where they would end up. But to see these huge, dramatic shifts in opinion, which you would not think that you would see this because you would never see these results in public polling that you see every day, but is really through deliberation and engaging with diverse others in their small groups and in the listening to experts, etc. This is where they shifted their opinions. And it's not only Republicans, Democrats also shifted their opinions as well. The first about raising federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, it started at 83% among Democrats and decreased to 59%. And the longest decrease that you see, that third one, support for a government-funded baby bond, it started at 62% and dropped to 21%. So you can actually see that there is indeed shifts among Democrats too. What you would think are traditionally proposals that most Democrats would support, you saw huge shifts after deliberation. And it's not only in policy proposals that you see these shifts. We saw huge shifts in affective polarization, where people became warmer to each other and like each other more afterwards. And in fact, I'm not going to show it, listen to it now, but I did a follow-up 1 year later podcast series called Voices of America in One Room, where I invited one entire group to come back and interview. And one person in the group, it's a first episode there. Her name's Beverly, and she was about in her early 70s at the time, was living in Frisco, Texas. And she shared with me during the interview that she actually moved herself from Frisco, Texas to Cary, North Carolina, citing it was the event that prompted her move because she felt like where she was living and the environment she was in did not allow her to meet and talk to different people and really have conversations that she really wanted to have. So she moved herself to Cary, North Carolina. And I asked her, really, this is just really difficult. And she did it during the pandemic as well. And she said that if she had stayed in Texas, she would just be waiting to die. And it was something I will remember forever. And there are other episodes in there and things that people change, behaviors that they change over the course of the year after the event. And it is really something to listen to if you're interested. I will skip that. And then I want to just share just a few slides from the youth deliberation from the video that you saw. Some of the, for me, a misconception that I had with young people was, I thought that they would want to support anything related to bettering the climate or supporting climate change policies wherever they could. So there was actually increased support for energy independence by this group of young people across the party lines. And then there was also increased opposition to eliminating the sales of new gas and diesel powered cars by the deadline of 2035. It increased from 45 to 59%, the opposition increase. And it was really interesting to see that. And we looked into some of the transcripts and discussions and really found that a lot of young people thought that, it's all nice for states or places that can afford to have electric vehicles and the network that you can have electric vehicles for. But for much of the country, there's not that infrastructure. And you can't actually just tell people to get rid of their cars. It's like not so easy. So it was very interesting to see the shifts in opinions that they had, and really some of the misconceptions that many of us had in thinking of what young people's policy preferences are. And in 2 minutes, I'm going to speed through the deliberation platform that our lab runs with the crowdsourced democracy team here at Stanford as well. It is AI assisted, which means actually that the platform does not have a human moderator. Several years ago, when we met with the crowdsourced democracy team. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, where did it go? Where did my slides go? Sorry, I had an incoming and then my slides disappeared.
We can see it.
Oh, you can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says AI assistant Stanford Online Deliberative.
Yeah, I can't. Oh dear. I can't seem to here. Okay, I found it. Sorry about that. And so several years ago, when we decided to think about how democracy could actually utilize technology. We thought for long and hard. And, one of the criticisms that our lab has had for implementing deliberative polling is that we can't scale. You're always stuck with the few hundred, maybe if you're lucky, running events for a few thousand people. But what about the millions of other people that are in our society? And the question was, how do we actually do that? And so we decided that we should have a deliberation platform to do so. And one of the main issues in scaling is that you have to train moderators. So we actually took all the training that we've used for decades and decided to build all the features of what a human moderator would do into the platform. So as a result, we've built this platform where it has a speaking queue, timed agenda, real-time transcripts, offensive language detection, and also nudges that allow participants to be nudged if they haven't spoken in a while or if they need just a little bit of help to engage in the discussion. We've logged over 100,000 hours of deliberation on this platform, operating in 40 different countries, 35 plus languages, and we've compared the results to in-person deliberations we've done, and also deliberations we've done on Zoom with the human moderator. What we found is that no matter if it's a human in person or a human on Zoom, our platform without the human moderator actually performs in the same way, where participants' opinions move in the same direction and also moves in the same amount. So really the substantive difference of how participants are changing their minds or having those discussions are really similar across the different modes that we tested. Now, I'm going to speed through some of this and just kind of show this. These are just kind of what the platform looks like. And I will show you a clip of what the online platform looks like. It's 1 minute long. And this discussion was about healthcare in the UK and whether healthcare should intersect with AI.
I think one of the things for me about this is if it's replacing a human interaction. Like I don't mind the idea of a chatbot as a reminder or some prompts through a set of questions or something like that. As soon as it's actually sort of chatting and to reduce loneliness, I think it's a really weird place to be, and I don't see what the benefits of it as opposed to trying to find humans who could do that instead.
So you can see, oops, sorry. You can see the platform. It's very similar to a Zoom. From a user experience, it's very similar to a Zoom or Google Meet. There's a queue in the middle of the screen, the pros and cons on the side where people will know what they're talking about. And we give sample arguments for people to help them as they're trying to have the conversation in the discussion as well. Just to close us out, I'll share that, not only do we do work in space talking about public policy, but we've been doing a lot of AI and tech governance work with industry partners as well and governments to talk about, what it means to govern technology in this day and age. We work a lot in schools. One of my passions is really trying to bring deliberation into K through 12. So not just in higher ed, but actually in elementary, middle, and high school so that they can build these skills when they're young and so that they can become second nature and allow them to really be able to grow these skills and practice them as much as possible. So I'm going to pause here. There's more slides here, but I'm gonna pause here and take some questions before it's too late.
Okay, we're going to pass out note cards for anybody who has a question and then pass them to me. I do have a few that we have here, Alice, and some of it you touched on. How do you scale deliberative polling nationwide?
So I would say our deliberation platform is definitely our answer to that question. There is an unlimited amount of users that we can have on the platform. So it is definitely the answer to that. been working with various folks to try to figure out how to do that. A lot of it is actually resources in trying to create an event that a lot of people would want to participate in. And as you can imagine, one of the other issues that we face is people's willingness to participate. When we're talking about millions of people and to gather them together to engage, we can no longer give people incentives. When we only have a couple hundred or a couple thousand people, we can provide incentives to get people to come. But when we're at millions, there's no way to give each person $100 to join. It becomes a different incentive. You have to join because of some reason that you have, and that willingness to participate is one of the issues that we truly trying to figure out how to crack. And it is one where you can talk about civic duty, you can talk about whatever it may be, but the fact of the matter is, how can we encourage people to want to engage in these types of events and deliberations? But the technology is here, if we can figure out the recruitment method.
And are there any problems encountered when moving from a platform of in-person retreats versus the digital platform?
We've not had any. We have basically mimicked the online experience from what our in-person experience was like. And so aside from just being in a virtual space, there isn't really anything that's different about the methodology is entirely the same. And our research has shown that the substantive opinion changes have been similar as well. Of course, I'm not saying that I would do away with in-person. I still think that in-person engagements are the best. I think they produce lasting effects. I mean, the impressions that you get from hearing about other people's lives and the stories that people tell, they leave a different imprint on you when it's told in person versus told online. But I would say, if we're able to have the resources to do things in person and then continue those conversations online on some regular cadence, that would be the structure that I would want to see.
Wonderful. Okay, question from the audience. How does the deliberation process account for participants who are extroverts versus introverts? The former tend to dominate social settings.
A lot of it is when it's in person, the moderator will help with engaging and making sure people are contributing. In the online version, there is a nudging mechanism that the platform executes, that if they've noticed that someone hasn't spoken in a while or hasn't spoken at all, they will have these escalating nudges. Whereas when it starts out, it will be, hey, you haven't spoken yet. Would you like to join the conversation? Something very easy. And then as the time goes by, the platform will provide substantive suggestions. Look at this argument. What do you think about it? Could you share this with your group? Tell them your opinion. And then it continues escalating. And providing the participants ideas of how to engage. Of course, both in person and online, you can't actually force somebody to talk. Even if, we've all been in a room where someone was called on and they still don't want to say anything. So there is that. We can't force them to engage, but we can do all we can to nudge them to get there.
Do you view grassroots canvassing, in-person, phone banking as effective in changing minds?
Wow.
And do you have any suggestions?
That's a really hard question. I do have to say that nowadays, because I know I am inundated with spam messages, text or phone calls, many text messages from candidates starting now and probably more as we head into November. And I delete them and I don't read them and I don't listen to the voicemails. So I think there is something to be said about in-person efforts to canvas. I think because we're so used to lots of online um, messaging, that the in-person interactions become more memorable to us. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that. I don't know about the phone, honestly. The phone, there's so much, it's so easy to, you have caller ID, things go to voicemail, things go to spam. I am not confident that the phone banking will continue to be useful, but I do think that the in-person interactions, when done well, of course, are probably very effective.
Do you have any suggestions on how to do it well?
Oh, wow. That I I I've had students, many students that have done canvassing, and I do always ask them about it, their experience. Um, so when they get trained, apparently, if I can remember all of it, um, one of the rules that they have is to listen. Is that it's you're not there just to, spew out the party line or a candidate's platform, but rather you want to listen to what the person wants to say or the grievances that they have, because a lot of times they open the door to talk because no one has listened to them. And um, spending those few minutes that the person is allowing you to be on their doorstep is about listening and saying that I hear you. And then maybe it's not even, you realize that they're not registered for your party or whatever it may be, but then it just becomes, well, I heard you. I'm so grateful you shared your story with us. And just remember to go vote. And it can be so easy because a lot of times when people feel too pressured, it may turn on you, and that has a bad impression on the candidate that you're canvassing for. But rather, if it just seems um, uh, not intentional and you're just there to be supportive and just remind them to be a good citizen, that may leave a better imprint on them. Again, I don't know for sure. I have not done too much canvassing in my own experience, so I'm not the best person to talk to.
Very good. How did you recruit and find the original group
Yeah.
to avoid selective bias?
Yeah. So for all of the American One rooms, I can say we worked with the NORC, which is the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago, to do recruitment. They are seen as the gold standard for recruiting. And they have a probability sample, which means that they actually based on census, will go out to all communities in the country to find the households, whether in person, online, on the phone, texting, whatever the method is. But they go to great lengths to actually find a probability sample to do that. And from there, we do invitations, etc.
Okay, here's another question. If you rely on AI, don't you leave out a ton of people who do not have access to an iPhone or a laptop or internet?
It's a great question.
How do you enable their
Yeah. So whenever we do our projects, especially if they're done online, we set aside a budget for people that do not have a device, do not have strong internet, and we will provide them funds to go purchase a phone or purchase internet access. We also provide resources for dependent care, child care. So if they are drawn into the sample and they want to participate, but they need someone to pay a babysitter or pay a caretaker, we will pay for that as well. So when we did a project in a few of the African countries, we offered the same thing. And luckily, a cheap Android phone that can access a video call was only about $50 or so at the time. And so we bought almost half the sample phones and devices to be able to participate. So we do everything we can to ensure that it is truly a representative sample of the population.
It seems one key is the expert content on the subject. How do you assure this is quality information when scaling up?
Yep. We do. So for all of our briefing materials, and many of them are online, at the end of it, you'll see the advisory committee that reviewed the document. And we do take care to compose the advisory committee to ensure that the viewpoints are representative across a political spectrum, especially doing so in the U.S. Not only politics, but also in policy to ensure that there are views that are represented across the spectrum. And of course, we can't account for everything. But what we do want to do is in the allotted space that we can provide the essential background and information. And to us, what's more important is when we show the pro and con arguments in the documents, that the pro and con arguments are equally weighted, that the argument on the pro side has an equally strong argument on the con side, so that it is not biasing one way or another. And we always say to the participants that these materials in the limited 20 or 30 pages that we are able to have everything in is a start. And what we will ensure is that there is balance and accuracy, but it's a start for them, and they should definitely search for more information if they want to, and learn always from each other. So that's how we approach the materials development part of it.
You've kept the political labels in the participants' deliberations. I've heard the advice when having difficult political conversations to find a common ground. Drop the labels. Thoughts?
I do. I think that's helpful to certain on certain topics and maybe in certain communities. So when we write our briefing materials, we actually take care to not include named politicians and named parties. So, for example, when we were talking about the US leaving the Paris Agreement about climate change, instead of saying the Trump administration in this year withdrew from the Paris Agreement, we said the US government withdrew from the Paris Agreement. Because if we indicate that it's the Trump administration, people will, already have a certain reaction from reading the word Trump administration. Whereas if we said the US government, that does not elicit the same kind of feeling. So we do take a lot of care to ensure that we minimize triggering emotions in the discussion. Of course, when participants bring it up in the discussion, we have no control over that, but we do want to try to keep the discussion and the materials on the policies and the facts, and not do that on our side. But of course, people will talk about what they want to talk about, but we do find that when the materials are largely void of those references, the discussions tend to be more focused on the substance of the policy.
Very good. What does research tell us about how to engage young people in democracy?
What the research tell us? So there's a lot of research about civic education, et cetera, and how teaching these skills are better for young people. But I don't know that they have been executed on, even though the research has said this. We just wrapped up a national deliberation on civics education in June. And I can say for certain that everyone thinks that civic education is important, but I don't think many of us realize that civic education is taught very differently, not only across states, but also across districts, because the curriculum is very much decided on district and even by teachers themselves in the classroom. And so I am very confidently will say that each student's civic experience in school is extremely different and varied, which means that there's no standard of what our expectation of what 18-year-olds should be doing after they graduate or become 18. So I even though there is research done about how important all of this is for young people, I think the implementation stage of it has been the problematic part of it. And it's very sad to see that. I think many people have tried. There are countless civic education organizations out there trying to do the same thing, but because in the classrooms across the country, there is not a standard for civics. People's understanding of what it is very different.
I'll leave you with one last question. Does the overall movement and opinions and thoughts in adults today give you hope?
Oh, that's a hard one. Does it give me hope? I will say, we'll start here. Hearing about your group and what you're all trying to do at the grassroots level gives me hope. Because I hang out with so many researchers and academics that talk in circles about why this voting method may be good or why these term limits may be bad. At the end of the day, their discussions don't change anything. And what we need are groups like yours that are actually trying to make a difference, one conversation at a time. And I say that because in the videos that you saw, it truly is the conversations with each other that they had that are making the difference. The young people, the national general public, when they are in the groups and they're sharing their lives and sharing their like what's going on in their everyday experiences, those are the things that resonate and they remember about each other. Those are the times that they remember that we're all not so different. We're all just trying to get by and we're trying to leave this place perhaps a little better than we came in. And so I think there's a lot to be said about doing things at the local level. And so I am hopeful because there are groups like yours across the country. I just hope I hope that you don't feel that just because you're just one group, you're not doing much. I think that it is essential that these local communities exist. And if you ever read Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think every conversation matters and every conversation counts. So I'm trying to do it in the schools. And, you know, I met someone who ran the Gates Foundation education program some time ago. He thought that when he got the job, he would solve education in the US because he had all the money in the world. He quickly realized that the entire US educational system is broken because there is no way to make a change at the national level because everything's controlled by the states. And literally, to make a difference, you have to go school by school, teacher by teacher. And I think that we are in that same boat. So we have to rely on ourselves if we want to be that difference.
100% agree with you on that. All right, Alice. Well, thank you so much for taking this.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening to me and allowing me to share all of this. And if there's anything that you need, any links or videos, feel free to let me know.